All right. I'm going to go ahead and call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. We're meeting in a hybrid format. Board member Noor is going to be joining us remotely. Board member Bryden has a family conflict and will not be here with us. Student representatives White and Hayden are not with us tonight. Student representative White is prepping for a school-sponsored trip to Greece, and board member Hayden is celebrating the Ram Dogs State Championship with the Sea Dogs tonight. So they're doing some pretty cool stuff. With that, let's go ahead and record attendance. So Deputy Superintendent Townsend, will you please call the roll?
Good evening, everybody. Member Ali.
Here.
Member Bilyeu.
Here.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Présente.
Member Bryden. Member Figdor.
Here.
Member Grant.
Here.
Member Noor.
Here.
Member Opperman.
Here.
Student Representative Hayden. Student Representative Kintiba.
Yes.
Student Representative Knight. Student Representative McDonald.
Here.
Student Representative Rosado. Student Representative Kunku. Chair Lenz.
Here. And so with that, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag. United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqiyik or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy or People of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. As a reminder of our mission, the Portland Public Schools is responsible for ensuring a challenging, relevant, and joyful education that empowers every learner to make a difference in the world. We build relationships among families, educators, and the community to promote a healthy environment, a healthy development, and academic achievement of every learner. And our definition of equity. Equity to Portland Public Schools is that all people are being held to high expectations and have access to opportunities that are reflective of their individual needs, identities, and experiences. Equity is achieved in Portland Public Schools when there are no identifiable differences in outcomes and experiences for any population subgroup. And now we're going to move into public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to give public comment, either in Zoom or in person? Okay, I'm going to save us a few moments of time if there is no one here to give public comment by not reading the guidelines. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment tonight. Seeing no Zoom hands or people here in the space. So first, I just want to recognize again all of our retiring staff across the district. We had a lovely celebration earlier tonight, and it was just so wonderful to hear about the incredible service that our staff has given the district. And in addition to that, June is full of many celebrations, and I'd love to highlight some of them. And I encourage board members and the public to attend as many of these events that are coming up as possible, but please do not forget to vote on June 11th. This will be my last plug before the election, but on June 11th, you can vote to approve our school budget and vote on important primary races within the city. Polls are open on June 11th from 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. on Election Day. You can find your polling place on the City of Portland's website, and all polling locations are ADA compliant. Please take yourself to the polls and remind at least 3 of your friends. And remember, you can register to vote the same day as the election here in Portland. Yes, Julianne, go ahead.
Also to let you know that you can vote
before Election Day if you go down to City Hall, which I did today. So I encourage that for people who know have very busy schedules.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman. And I just heard on my right, Ms. Bondo also voted early. Congratulations. I don't care when you vote, just vote. Beautiful. And then we also have graduation season upon us. So tomorrow morning, Portland High School graduation is at 11 a.m. at Merrill Auditorium. Thursday, June 6th, Deering High School graduation is at 11 a.m. at Merrill Auditorium. And Casco Bay High School will round it out at 6 p.m. On Thursday, June 6th at Merrill Auditorium as well. I just want to take a moment to congratulate all the graduates across the district, and we can give them a little bit of a round of applause. And to all the families and educators who have supported them along the way, thank you. June 15th, which is a week from Saturday, is Portland's Pride Festival and Parade. We meet at noon to decorate a big yellow school bus. The school bus will be parked on Brown Street. You can come and hang up balloons and streamers and blow bubbles. It's very fun. Wear your favorite rainbow gear and join us to show your support for our inclusive and diverse community. You can walk next to the bus or ride the bus, and everyone is welcome. The parade officially starts moving at 1 p.m. So anytime between 12 and 1, you can join us at the bus. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the report of the superintendent. We thought you were just leaving. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The thought has never crossed my mind. Let me just get organized here for a second. Tonight, we have the last of our progress monitoring within the superintendent update. So we're just going to have a couple of folks up joining, but I just need to also share my screen. So that's what I'm going to do here. So first, just before we start, I want to recognize again, as we transition from the celebration that we had right before this, that, I started my time here with Portland Public Schools in the first 4 months doing a listen and learn. And it was an opportunity where I really got to hear from staff and from students and from the community about what made Portland Public Schools so great. And the constant theme was around the people, and about how important it was that the staff we had and the value that they had and the contributions that they make every day in classrooms, in the lunchroom, on bus routes, to making sure that our students feel that they have safe, warm, welcoming, challenging classrooms. And it was so nice to hear this evening as we read about the retirees and just how much they've contributed, whether it was over 5 years, 10 years, 55 years, the contributions that they have made. And so tonight we're going to do the last of our progress monitoring and to share that out. And we'll wrap up at the end of this meeting tonight with an update and a first read of our strategic plan, which is again, really a continued focus around how do we make sure that Portland Public Schools remains the great district that it is, that it builds off of the work that has happened within the Portland Promise, and that it remains focused around the people that we have in the district and continuing to build off of that. I'm going to start, though, before we get into the progress monitoring, with highlighting 2 staff members that were recognized this last week that are continuing with our district. And so I want to share just this last week that 2 of our staff members had individual recognitions. On the left, you see Leanna Liddick. She is one of our administrative assistants at Deering High School, and she was recognized by the state for the RISE Award. This is an award that the State Department of Education gives to 2 administrative assistants who go above and beyond for students, and they have 2 each year, and then they're nominated for the national recognition. And if you had the opportunity to be at Deering and just listen to what people read and described as her work, you would have just felt the love and the know that people in Portland do whatever it is that staff and students need. And so I just want to recognize her here for her work. And on the right, you see Danny Lowe. If you've had the opportunity to be near East End Community School at any point close to arrival or dismissal of students at East End Community School, you will recognize Danny there, whether it's the bright shirts or the flair that he has on his vests. He makes sure that our students get to school safely as a crossing guard. He's one of many crossing guards that we have in the district, but Danny goes above and beyond to make sure that students are safe. And on Friday was the 3rd annual Danny Day. And it was just quite the celebration. And you got the sense of both East End and what Danny means to the school. And so just want to recognize that. I also want to recognize, and this is just a walk-on note here, because it just happened that PATHs, right? So PATH is all around us right now. And it is a CTE program within the district. We just had recognized in the last week, one of our students. So many of our students in PATHs are going to the Skills USA conference that is in Georgia this year. And Skills USA is a conference that recognizes CTE, industry credentials, and all of the work that they do around building their professionalism and their future careers within their pathways. And what I'm going to give to you now is a pin that was designed by a student at PATHs that was selected by the state of Maine as our state pin for this conference this year. And so every student from the state of Maine who is going to this conference in Georgia will be wearing it this year. When they go down to Georgia, this is the pin that they will be trading. And so congratulations to Julia Lumsa, who got this recognition, but you wanted to make sure you had one. And so if you happen to find yourself in Georgia during this conference, you can also participate in the trading. And if not, you can add it to your PPS swag. And so let me give you this out real quick.
Oh, that's so cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could not have done that.
For those of you that can't see it at home, the design is a lobster boat that says the word Maine really large on it, and then hanging down, there's a little pencil, a lobster, and a buoy charm. It is absolutely adorable and so well designed. Awesome job.
All right, now we're back to our regularly scheduled program here. At the beginning of this year, the board, in partnership with the senior leadership of the district, we identified a number of initiatives that we were going to work on this year, that we were going to use progress monitoring as an opportunity to come before the board and the public and check in on them twice a year. And what you see up there is the iterative process that we talked about. As we're now at the end of the year and we are about to dig in on the new strategic plan, this process is really just sort of an opportunity to really honor that process. And so it's less about digging back in, but to really make sure that we come back and say, this is what we had committed to and where are we relative to it. One of the things that we've talked about in our progress monitoring, whether it's for the initiatives this year or the new strategic plan, is that there will always be bumps in the road. We always plan to hit all of them, but we come in realizing that sometimes we'll need to course correct and there'll be adjustments along the way. But we're excited tonight to share with you where we are on actually what was initiative number one or objective number one. And so what you see up there is that we're going to share with you tonight where we are on objective one, which reads, we are one team with common goals, missions, and values. We are generally on track with this priority in Objectives 1, but need to continue to closely monitor special education hiring as we go through the summer and to continue to refine our communication strategy. Within this objective, there were four initiatives or priorities, and you see them there with 3 of them on track and 1 of them what we're calling mixed because it had multiple facets to it. I'm going to share out on 1 of them. I will do a quick overview of one that Barrett was the lead on, and we'll hold questions just because Barrett is not here tonight. And then Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Atkinson-Duena will be sharing out on 1, and Dr. Valenzuela will be sharing out on the other one. And so with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Atkinson-Duena to come up and share.
Good evening. Under this objective, there are, as we said, there are 4 priorities. And the first one is that we have a strong leadership development that builds knowledge and skills in leaders. We said we are on track for this. And the key measures that we used for this purpose are mainly the new teachers or TNTP survey that we give is every spring to almost everyone in the district, the teachers, supporting staff, as well as the leaders. And our leaders reported that the district effectively uses student performance data to drive our work. And last year, 2023, in the spring, it was 42% of the leaders. And this went down this year to 22. And the other measure or the other key results that we were using was from the TNTP as well. The district supports me in my role as an instructional leader. And from 54, it went to 65. So as you see, this is a little bit mixed of like 1 going up and 1 going down. And also Dr. Atkins-Duena and myself, we administered, the district survey to the principals in the spring, in the fall of 2023. And my manager uses student performance data to drive our work. It was 67%. And my manager supports my role as an instructional leader. 93% of the leaders actually said yes to that. Agreed or strongly agreed.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. The other thing I just wanted to report out, I got to move the slide here, are some other survey items that we looked at on the TNTP survey that focused on a couple bodies of work that we were focused on. So one body of work that we were focused on was implementing the new principal evaluation system. And so these are the items that we chose that we felt that aligned with those around clear expectations, support, and accountability. Another area of work that we had been focused on was around elevating our practices around classroom observations. And so we selected 3 items from the TNTP survey that we thought related to that. And even though there's still room for improvement and growth on these items and in those practices, we did feel like the increase from 2023 to 2024 is some good evidence that we have made some movement in those practices around classroom observations and around support and accountability with the new principal evaluation tool. And I'm gonna just kind of summarize some of the work what we've accomplished this year. So we did implement a new principal evaluation tool. So all school leaders have completed self-assessments using the new tool, and we completed our mid-year conversations. We are in the process of completing our summative evaluations right now. We are also in the final stages of developing the assistant principal effectiveness rubric, which we expect to be using next year. So at the beginning of next year, we will have both of our school administrator effectiveness rubrics ready, and we will be using both of them. We also, which we reported out earlier this year around our ability to hold data meetings and the curriculum implementation monitoring walkthroughs that we did with school leaders, and that we were able to establish regular meeting routines with our school leaders about 3 times a month. Some of the current challenges, I just noted the summative evaluations. We're behind on those. We expect to finish those by the end of June. I think the timeline that was outlined was June 1st, so we're probably running about a month behind on that. And I would say, you know, as we continue to rebuild our data systems, we've made do with the data that we have for our data meetings, but that continues to be something that we need to work on. And then I would say just, you know, one of the challenges around adjusting to the new structure. There's some excitement around that, of course, but also a lot of time in kind of planning for transitions and planning for who does what now that we're in a new organizational structure. And just some key next steps I'd like to highlight. So we expect to finish our summative evaluations by the end of June. We'll be finalizing the assistant principal effectiveness rubric and prepare principals and APs for the implementation in fall 2024. We're continuing to build our data systems and our data use practices, and we're have already kind of started developing our plans for building a common instructional leadership practices. So and then I will turn it over to, let's see. Oh, that's yours.
There's not actually a ton of update on this one. This is one that sort of became stale after we did the retreat in February. This was one that we had set back that we just wanted to make sure we had done the retreat as a board in, I think it was September, and then again in February, and that we had onboarding for new board members in December. And so this is one that just sharing up there in terms of full transparency, that we did that as a collective, right? One of the things we talk about is about us as a collective and a team on this. And so just wanted to share that out there. And so there's not a ton of update on this, but just sharing that did happen. The one thing that I will just highlight as you're sitting here and you're going through progress monitoring is I do anticipate a different structure for progress monitoring next year, recognizing that we'll have the new mission measures, the new initiatives, as well as the initiative measures, and that we're working with Attuned to fully structure that for next year. And so there will be a new structure for that. And then for 1.3 spoke about wanting to ensure the retention and recruitment of PPS, or recruitment of people who work for PPS, that increases diversity and results in full staffing for classrooms serving our highest need students. So we continue to generally remain staffed at a pretty high level. And that, as you can see, as Barrett reports there, we have 17% of our staff identifying as people of color. We continue to struggle around just continuing to make sure that our specialized programs remain fully staffed, and that remains a focus. And so we're mixed in terms of this area, and it will remain a focus both over the summer and moving into next year. You can see a number of pieces there. The transition to ADP obviously made a focus for our HR team around the work of transitioning to ADP, the transition of our special education department and thinking about our programming there has kept a focus around staffing. And then we have had some good news just around some grants that we've earned and thinking about strategically some partnerships within this area. And so this does remain a focus for next year. And with that, I'm going to invite Grace up here to talk about communications.
Good evening. The fourth priority under Objective 1 is focused on a strong and effective communication system that keeps the community informed, improves operational effectiveness, saves leaders and teachers time, and celebrates the district. We are on track in accomplishing this priority. The target activities we outline for this include the following: have a strong, fluid, effective, and responsive communication system, utilize the communication platforms that are linguistically accessible, develop communications handbook that outlines processes and procedures for internal and external communications, brand guidelines, and campaign executions. I included in this presentation data from the annual parent survey that we sent out to families in late winter. This survey uses 8 questions that were taken from the U.S. Department of Education's parent survey on school climate. And we can measure our results from their pilot study. This year, we use Reach My Teach as a platform to send out the survey. And with this platform, we were able to have the survey open for 6 weeks. And in some cases, for some schools, it's 8 weeks, as opposed to the previous years when we have it only open for 5 days. And in this platform, we were also able to send reminder communications only to parents who did not complete the survey. As a result, the participation rate went from 29% in 2023 to 41% this year. So that's a significant improvement in a response rate. On this slide, you are looking at the results of the district as a whole by grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school. And we can also disaggregate the results by individual schools, and we have that data as well. And schools have their data. Highlighted here are 2 of the 8 questions which are related to communications. The first one is about responding promptly to calls and messages or emails. And you can see that the pilot is 88%, and we are a bit higher than the pilot result. We've seen significant improvements in our score this year from last year. Oh wait, I forgot. The second question is: the school communicates information and procedures clearly to parents and guardians. So compared to the national results of the U.S. Department of Education's pilot, our scores are a bit higher, and we've seen significant improvements in the scores this year from last year in all levels. And the middle school still need to catch up with elementary and high school scores. So for the next slide, talking about what we've accomplished this year and what our challenges are, I'm going to invite our communications coordinator, Tess Nazalewicz, and language access coordinator, Maureen Clancy, to discuss this.
Hello. One of the things we've been doing this year is to improve our social media. We've developed a system and routine for posting on social media. We have several people in our department in the district communications that post, but it was kind of hit and miss and random. So our web manager, Fong, developed a calendar where she has all the dates plugged in, where things that we know are going to happen, like you may have seen on social media. We've been pushing the budget vote on June 11th. And so we can schedule things like that. And then we add to it with, if we get an announcement of an award or something unplanned, we also add that. So that's been very helpful. We've also built web pages for a staff hub to post protocols and procedures for various departments. That information exists on the web, but people have to do a lot of hunting to find it. And so we want to have it all in one location that's just going to be accessible to staff, but they can easily find that information. We've also developed the communications handbook to include communications procedures, the brand guidelines that we've developed not only for the district, but for each school, and policies related to communications. And then we also have redesigned and refocused the staff and community newsletters and the staff bulletins. If you may recall, during COVID, those were coming out like every week or every other week. And when, information was constantly changing, but I think we were inundating people, so they stopped reading them. So we have scaled each one back to once a month, and we've tried to make them more visually appealing and the information shorter so that people can quickly read and get all the information quite quickly. And then Maureen's going to talk about some achievements we've made where language access is concerned.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everybody. So probably prior to my coming into this position, which is more than 9 years ago, there was a set of policies and practices put in place for language access. And over that time, obviously, things changed. So this year we updated all those policies and practices to get help for language. So we have things like how to request a written translation, what to do if something's not translated. We have a generic form to attach to it, how to inform the interpreters about that work, how to put in a help desk ticket if you need help, how to call us to get the help you need, when to use the language line, how to use the language line when you need it, how to use our translation library, how to set up parent-teacher conferences, which again is changing. So we have all those systems written down and available to all staff across the district to use those and understand how to get the help they need when they need language support. We also, with the help of Jeff Borland and student Violet Bloom, there was a new online parent-teacher conference scheduling system piloted this year. And I have to say it was tremendously successful. For years, we have wanted to give parents choice, multilingual parents choice when they schedule their conferences. And we hadn't been able to do that in the previous system that we used. So now we can do that. And we used it in 3 schools in the fall, all the schools in the spring. And now Jeff and his team have developed a more formal process and system that will be used going forward. And we're meeting actually on Monday because I need to train my staff on how to use the new system so they can help the schools use it effectively. So it was incredibly successful. We had a much better attendance rate at conferences. We might have missed a few families who didn't get a conference, but we had more families actually show up and have a full conference with the new system. So it was very successful. And the last one, the platforms. So with the new website, our website makes everything that is in the website translatable. So what we have done is make sure that schools are using either the website or the SMORE platform, because those platforms provide the translation services so the families can read the newsletters that the schools provide. So did you want me to talk about the challenges too? So use of information systems to identify language needs. So one of the problems that has come more recently as our language needs change, when our Somali families arrived and our Cambodian families and our Vietnamese families, the parents and the kids spoke the same language. Now, with our Portuguese speakers, often their parents don't speak Portuguese, they speak French or Lingala. And the way our system works is the student's primary language is the primary language in Infinite Campus for the families. So sometimes families are not getting, you can look in Infinite Campus and see what the parents need, but the default goes to that child. So when we did the parent-teacher conferences, instead of using the child's language, we used the written language of the family as a way to bypass that process. But we're working on trying to figure out if there's a better set of data that we can put in the system so we can get better data out as we need it. So we're working on those things. Is there other stuff we need to talk about? And how to use things at the right time. For instance, Reach My Teach has become very popular in our schools, but it isn't appropriate for every communication. When there's a behavior or a problem at school, the teachers should be having a three-way call. Parents should be able to ask questions, do follow-up, which is hard to do through a Reach My Teach message. It's really designed to be a short, specific message between teacher and parent. So we're still working on finding ways to make sure staff are using the best tool available for the need that they have. And I can't read what the last one says. Getting high quality. Oh, the photos. So if anybody went to the Wabanaki study, I was the photographer, and my husband will be the first to tell you I'm a terrible photographer. So Grace said, your pictures are really no use. So lots of times we're using, not really. Lots of times we're using each other, our staff who are there to do these things. So we don't always get the best quality photos to use for the things that we need. So it really requires somebody who knows what they're doing. So when Lon, who's one of our support staff, she goes, she's very good, but she's not always available. So that's always going to be a challenge for those things. Anything else, Grace? Thank you.
Today I had a photographer, a professional one, taking pictures of Ryan and meeting with some staff today. It's not always that we can access pictures, photographers. So it's an important one. Image is important. So we continue to build a strong communication system. This is an ongoing project in my mind. But some of them, I think these action items here have an end date. So we're going to be busy this summer while everybody is under the sunlight and on the beach. We will be doing this work that is critical to be done during quiet season when there are no emergencies happening. So it's a great time to go live for the staff hub, which will include all of the standard operating procedures, the new one that we have been working on. And so we have a number of web pages, social media collateral materials to get done in the summer so we can have them ready before school starts. The staff hub also will house a lot of HR, human resources materials, and other operational forms that we use district-wide. And that will be accessible by signing on with your password. So with a lot of structures and personal transitions at the district level, so Ryan suggested that we need to have a central office staff directory, and part of it is also families there had been comments that we have gotten about. So who do I call for this? And so we are going to build a central office staff directory so that people know who to call for what. So and then of course, safety communications is an all-time review all the time, so it's an ongoing work, but we will want to make sure that we have it ready for September. And this is a big thing that we're occupying my mind, is how are we going to design a communications blueprint for the strategic plan so that is accessible in plain language for families. So for those of a lot of people do not live our world, and it's very hard for them to understand our jargon. So we got to make sure that our strategic plan is accessible to ordinary people. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
So I'm going to pull back up the 4 initiatives within this area. And what I would ask, if it pleases the chair and the board, is that we do questions 1 at a time.
Yep.
And that we skip 1.3, just because we can take those questions and we'll have Barrett follow up within either the next meeting. We can do that in the superintendent update, or we can do it within the weekly update, either one. And so we'll do 1.1 first.
And sorry, just to clarify, you do want questions for 1.3 or you do not want questions?
I think we should hold those so
Okay.
that Barrett can answer them.
Beautiful.
He's just out today.
Yep. So initiative 1.1. Yeah, go ahead, board member Figdor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Superintendent, and to the full team for the presentation today. I had a question regarding the TNTP survey results, and if Dr. Ahmed or whoever is appropriate, talk a little bit about why we saw the first question in the chart. We saw that data point drop by 20 points. So if you can, it was the district effectively uses student performance data to drive our work. If you can help us understand what you see as some of the contributing factors to that decline.
Well, I'll give a little bit of some context. So you may remember in the fall.
Get closer to the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. So a couple things. In the fall, when we identified indicators that we were going to track, we actually had an indicator that was around my manager uses student performance data to drive our work. The TNTP updates their survey regularly. And so in the 2024 version of the survey, there actually wasn't an item that said my manager uses the data. And so this is a little bit of a substitute for that. We left it in there anyway because we did have the data and it was the closest one to the indicators that we had intended to track. But as far as explaining why there is a decline, I do think that speaks to our district capacity to provide data and the kind of the turnover that we've had in that department over the number of years. And then also just having like new data person right here and just our ability to access data quickly. And I think that's, so that's an area that I think we will be able to respond to. Like we should see growth on that next year, but I think it just speaks to like the district data capacity. So,
Other questions? Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
Right, thank you. Thank you for the clear expectations, support, and accountability. I just want to understand the percentage. Those are the percentage of the teacher who have responded, or those are. Can you just explain what we have from the 2023 to 24 on those 2 key results? What those percentage means? What's the meaning on that? What we have on the 32% for the leader survey question, another criteria that will be used to evaluate my performance. So we have 32 and we have 65 for 24. So those are the response of the teachers?
That's the school leader survey. So principals and assistant principals. So I think that increase does make sense given that we put out a new principal evaluation tool this year.
Right.
And so that the expectations would be clearer, makes sense.
So what's our percentage target then we want to reach?
I mean, I think we would hope that we'd be much higher than 65%. I mean, I would think that we would be in the 90th percentile. Some things you might have if there's a new staff member, maybe there's not so great in the transition, but I think, and just a reminder that our assistant principals did not have an evaluation tool this year. So that is something that we will rectify next year.
Okay. So one is below like 22 for 24. So what are the strategic plan to try to increase that?
Are you talking about,
On the second one.
yeah, for
yes.
prioritizing observations and feedback? I'll speak
Right.
to the elementary level, and then
Okay.
Dr. Ahmed can speak to the secondary level. So we did a couple things this year that raised it, but I think we will build on those. So we did implement, like I referred to, curriculum implementation walkthroughs.
Mhm.
So that was one area that one strategy that we used for I just want to make sure I'm observations and feedback. The other strategy that I used was checking in with a spreadsheet with leaders around like what observations have you completed. So working with our HR team, like Julia Hazel and Beth Linovich, around helping them to track, like if a leader fell behind on observations, we intervened and kind of offered ways to support them to do those evaluations. And so there are a couple strategies and we'll continue to do that. We have some more work to do on that.
Mhm.
And then I think also just our work with Attune for next year is planned to have some regular, just more increased observations and making that a regular part of our work. And then
And also, I'm sorry,
No,
Dr.
go
Angela. Yeah. And the way to track that, with those strategic plan, then you just spoke about it. So did you have any tracking ways to track that one so we can see the increase or decrease on those percentages?
yeah, yes, we have. So for our teachers that are required to be on cycle, right? Those are mostly our probationary teachers. We have there's a pretty clear system for tracking when those observations are completed.
Okay.
We've had less of a mechanism for tracking like just general walkthroughs or things like that. And my hope is that we will actually have a little bit of a walkthrough tool next year, but that's still that's still to be determined, and that would make it easier just for us to kind of track how we're doing. I mean, we can make our own paper tracker or things like that, but it would be much easier if there was a tool for that. So,
Okay, right, thank you.
And yes, there was also another challenge was that in some buildings there was really more than like 20 new staff members who wanted to have this regular contractual observationists, and that was also in some leaders actually was a challenge to do all these observations as they run the buildings because of the new staff members. But another thing also talking about the using an instrument or a walkthrough tool, we are working, one of our actually things that we are working with the leaders is just to develop a tool that where we'll be warehousing data then and we'll doing more observations and literally looking into some of the look force and how to measure, how to monitor our the initiatives and of our strategic plan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Board Member Upperman, go ahead.
Thank you. I have three. One of my questions is what is a manager? I've never heard of that term. My manager supports me. Is that you?
yeah, anybody who is supervising somebody.
Okay, so that's just a random, non-specific reference. Okay. How many leaders would we have when you're talking about the clear expectations? The individual principals, so we're talking 18, 19?
About that times two, I would guess, if we're talking assistant principals too.
Okay, yeah. So because I was just wondering when you're talking about the percentages, that makes so 18 to 19 principals, which they had the guide and the assistant principals did not. I appreciate you breaking down some idea of what was going on with the age groups, because this is K-12, pre-K-12. So do you have in your own pocket somewhere where the improvements are? I mean, I know a lot of time was spent with elementary and it's harder to do all of this with the multidisciplinary situations in high school. How are we going to help these leadership get these things done. It's not easy.
Well, I can say one main thing big thing that we're doing is with the having the special ed coordinators at the building level will mean that our special education coordinators can do the IEP meetings. We had been relying on school administrators to be at those meetings as the LEA, the local education, representative. So that will free up school administrators' time to focus on the instructional piece, and classroom observations are a big part of that. So that's.
And Dr. Oberman, if you're looking into like segregated data for secondary and elementary, that the TNTP do not identify. So it is like all of the leaders.
So this is just a general blind
Just in general.
numbers. I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. In observations, having had people observe me, had no idea what science was in general or specifically. Are we able to, at the secondary level, provide some content as well as pedagogy type observations? Because even the pedagogies differ in science and literature. No, I presume no, but I'm just wondering.
So in the secondary level, particularly in the high schools, there are multiple, at least 3 leaders, 2 assistant principal, and in comprehensive high schools, and 1 assistant principal here. So often, and coming from the building, it is the leaders divide the work that they according to their strengths and how they can give feedback. Also, the TVEL tool is really, it's more about good teaching, less about the content. So it is very user friendly, and it is really very good tool to measure the students' learning and less about the teacher teaching, but the student learning, and which is very useful.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for that one.
Beautiful. Any other questions on 1.1? You can just check Zoom, look for hands. I don't see any hands there. Any other questions on 1.1? Okay, then let's go ahead and move to 1.2. Yeah, Board Member Figdor, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just on this one, I want to acknowledge that the board does not have an evaluation tool in place right now. It was something we are moving towards prior to the pandemic that got sidelined with the pandemic. And there are really good tools out there that can help the board, help us understand what our strengths and learning edges are, and how we as a body can be more effective. So I'd encourage us to move towards that when we have an opportunity, when we have capacity to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions about 1.2? We'll just use this opportunity to plug a reminder for board members to give feedback on the draft of the 2024-2025 calendar. We're hoping to get that published before the start of the school year next year. So please take some time to give feedback on that. And that will be for all board meetings and committee meetings as well. Great. We're going to bypass 1.3. And so let's go ahead and move on to 1.4. Yes, Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
A couple questions here. So for the response here, I see the question 3 and 4. So I see the increase on the communication tools here from 23 to 24. Those are included all parents across the district or just the multilingual?
No, these are all parents.
This is all parents.
And as I said earlier, it's 41% response, right?
41% only.
And that's a lot better than previously because we had.
So we came from 25, where we were.
We were, what did I say?
29.
29%.
29. So on those 41, do we have any idea? You may not respond now. How did we move the trend line for the multilingual families?
did not move the trend line. It's the same for multilingual. The issue is this. We have parents, so this platform, while we may be able to call to send email and text to parents, we cannot make calls.
Yeah.
So the calls are important for those who are not literate at all. So that is an issue that still we're trying to figure out what best to do, the response rate for them. So what we did for some was read. So if they call us and read to them individually the survey questions so they can respond. But as long as they know, they give us permission that this is my link because the link is specific to a family and to a specific school. If you have 5 children and they go to 3 different schools, then we have to call them, to complete a survey 3 times. Because it's really by school. The surveys is about how your school, your school's climate.
So that means we still have an issue, right?
Yes.
So
We still have to work on that one with the folks who are need to oral communication.
to have a fully participant, yes.
Yes.
So that's gonna be more accurate than when I see.
The interesting point
Yeah.
is that the response rate for English-speaking parents, were lower than the multilingual response rate in the previous years.
Okay.
Now we were able to capture more English-speaking families because of the span of time that the survey is open. But we did not make a move, increase the response rate with multilingual parents because of the oral component that is missing in this platform.
Okay. So this will still have an issue here because I would be curious to see what we come as a strategy for the
Yes.
for the month and years to come, because that's the way we can capture and have more accuracy on those response and be balanced. Then we got answer from parents.
Yeah.
Because he's not representative. He's not represent some of the voices here.
Can I ask a question from your experience?
Can you please use the microphone?
From your experience with the multilingual team, recognizing that the multilingual team fills a gap for schools around communication. If we asked with your multilingual team these same questions to families, what would be the response rate in terms of the feeling? Would it be significantly lower, higher? Would it depend on language? What would be the response in terms of the cultural navigation?
The data shows that they've consistently responded a lot more positively than the English-speaking parents. This is another interesting data point.
So that's just the piece I wanted to highlight, is that while we don't have it broken out, one of the things that I consistently heard in the listen and learn, right, is actually that we had more families represented that were multilingual in the listen and learn because of the outreach that was done proactively. And even when we look at this for our multilingual families, because of the work of the team, that in some ways, well, we don't have it broken out, and there may be individual stories and individual experiences, that in many cases, the experience, because of the relationship, is one where they are getting the communication that they need.
Yeah.
So I think there may be more to dig into, but it isn't necessarily that it's a deficit, but that it is something to explore.
I think it's both.
That's why I say, like, it's something to explore.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Did you have anything to add, Maureen?
All right. I have one last subject. So for the families, multilingual families, then we have a phone number and we can send message like closing school or emergency issue. Are we sending them in English, or are they receiving message on their own specific language?
In their own language.
All right. Because I still have a couple of families that are still receiving in English, but they are French speaker, like myself. Okay, so that's just that part. Okay. Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions on this initiative? Do you have a question? Please go ahead, Board
Yes,
Member Opperman.
Thank you. I have a couple of things. One is having to do with the social media platforms and the fact that, I get information from central office, and I also have managed to get on the platforms for PTOs, but I don't. Do the schools themselves have their own Facebook pages that they put out information, and how does one access that? That would be because I often share what I get from the school district out. So that would be something that would just be, I think, helpful to know.
So you have to find a school if you're not a parent
Mhm.
and a regular
Mhm.
receiver of newsletters from the school, then you have to type in the name of the school and then Ocean Avenue, and then you will see all the Facebook messages from Ocean Ave.
Oh, into Facebook itself.
Yes,
Okay, so therefore,
Yes.
So if
but
there isn't a way to,
Yeah.
and I don't know about that sort of thing, but a way to link it from.
we do tag it. So in other words, if we see something from Ocean, then we tag it in our feed.
Right.
So we can share the stories district-wide
Yes.
that is from
Yeah, and
specific.
then we get those from certain schools more regularly, and
I have to say that not all schools are equal in terms of their how active they are in their social media pages. There
is
are
it because they don't know how to do it? They need more support? Or is it just that's one more thing?
it's a lot. Yeah, it's one more thing.
Okay. Okay. And I guess the other question was kind of on all of these, Portland Adult Ed Communication or Portland Adult Ed Leadership, where are we at knowing all that sort of thing? And anybody
Can
can
you,
answer.
can you
or
clarify your question? Can you say your question?
Like I said, my question is how I don't see in any of this information direct evaluation of communication or other aspects of retention in Portland Adult Ed. And so I just was wondering, is that something that's kind of in the process? Is it just such a different beast?
I think what you're raising is a gap, right? Is a gap that we need to make sure that we're capturing. Because right now we're not like you raising it, it's like, yes, it's a gap.
Yeah.
So we need to look at it.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Victor, go ahead.
Dr. Opperman's previous question raised a question in my mind, which is, I know many of the PTOs do have their own newsletters, and I'm wondering, Dr. Valenzuela, in your work to make the work of the PTOs better reflect our, more accessible to our full student body and their families and better represent our full student body and their families. Are PTOs using a platform that is translatable? I'm assuming not, and I'm wondering if we could get them to it. Like, I used to co-chair the Reiki PTO. We use some random MailChimp account.
MailChimp has translation.
It
feature.
does.
Yeah.
Oh, there
A
we go.
lot of these platforms already have translation features, but you have to link it, the translation, in order for it to work.
So I don't know if that PTO work is continuing, but if so, could we raise this as an issue? Because I do think that getting the word out is half the challenge.
Yeah.
And if we're only getting that word out in English, it's really limiting.
The other thing that I want to say is that I just wanted to stress with our principals that if PTOs have their social media platform, that they have separate ones for their school. It just needs to be separated because we don't know who's posting what in those spaces. So it's got to be, separate. So there are schools that have a PTO Facebook page and they have their own Facebook page.
Yeah, I'd love to just add on to this because I've had conversations with a lot of our PTOs around the district about that they just feel like they don't know what resources are available to them when it comes to language access. And I think that there is intention and want to do it, but they don't know how. I think most PTOs that I see, you have to opt into their communications, but that is the opt-in language is not translated. And so they can't get the welcome to all the people or the ask to all the people. And so I would love, as I'm talking to PTOs, if I can get information from you to take to them about how or best practices, that would be awesome. Because I do think there is a real want to do that. Just got to connect the dots on it. Yeah.
We can add that is, we did one session on PTO on language access.
Awesome.
But we can do another that actually Dr. Opperman.
I think there's a
attended.
real
Yeah, but one that actually works with the social media aspect, because, again, how do you get people to come in to a meeting?
Yeah, I think there's a big appetite for that.
Yeah.
And it overlaps with the work that the foundation has been doing too in terms of fundraising and building community. So that's awesome. Did you have another part to your question? Okay, great. I just had a couple of things that, first, I just want to thank the whole communications team because just as a community member, it is so much easier to find information about the school and what's going on. So I just want to thank you for that, both online and on our website. I know the amount of hours that has gone into that, and it's it really feels like a big difference as a community member. So thank you. One thing, just thinking about other conversations I've had with staff members, and I think this just goes down to implementation again, but just staff members not knowing how to access the language access line or when it's okay to do that. I think there's sometimes a fear that teachers are not allowed to use it or they are. I think it's just around communication. And so I'm just hopeful. Thinking about the implementation, I'm excited to hear about when you have those new policies, what that looks like. Yeah, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Schools have those access to those.
I think that there's a little bit of, gatekeeping at the schools. So, and I have said this many, many times, I've never seen a large bill for language line. It's not something that's going to, hurt any school's budget in any significant way to use it. But sometimes there's fear around giving open access to those. So if people ever call me, I always give them the multilingual code,
Awesome.
because the law says we must provide language access. And so I don't want it to be limited. But I've reiterated that with schools many times, but.
That is awesome to know.
And I send it to anybody who needs it, and it's on our website, and it's in our standard operating procedures, how to use the language line.
Beautiful. And I'm also just flagging a question for Barrett, if it could be in the orientation too, so that people can, they're getting it from multiple places, because I just want people to access that, and we will find
We'll
the.
also have Dr.
money.
Ahmed and Dr. Atkinson-Duena communicate that to principals.
Awesome.
So that they're clear.
Awesome. And then just because you're doing so much good work, I just want to ask one small thing is it's really hard not only to find people in central office and their information, but school by school, the staff directories are so hard and inconsistent. And so if we could, and they live in Google Docs and they're weird formats, and if we could just have a consistent, I know that's probably already on your radar.
We
but
had
thank you.
actually communicated that in our last summer meeting with the schools, encouraging people to use a Google Doc because the frequency of changing staff.
Yeah.
That's, if we put it on the website, it's just we're going to be living our lives on that, changing the staff all the time. So the Google Doc that they use to account for their staff is what could be linked on our website.
Great. It's hard to find school by school.
Under contact us. It should live under contact us. But we will reiterate. We will reiterate.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. All these things. Thank you.
And I also want to say, I always encourage schools to call the multilingual office before using the language line. We would prefer them to use us whenever possible, but to use language line when there isn't an interpreter available.
Beautiful.
And it's really not for special education meetings. And those kinds of, it's got to be specific, quick messages.
Okay, I'm taking it. I'm taking all these tips. Thank you so much. Any other questions from the board? Anybody online? Okay, I think we're good with this part.
Yeah, just to close this out, I just want to take us full circle. So we started this as a group, as a team of 10 back in a meeting in September, where we came up with initiatives. There were about, I think, around 15 of them that we said these were going to be the priorities that drove the work. And just a thank you to the 9 of you, or the what's now 12, right? And it's changed a little bit, but really sticking with these and making sure that these were the focus of the work over the year, and just a credit to all of the staff. It's been an immense amount of work to make sure that these stay the work and that there's been movement in the work. And so, if this was hard work to do this over the last year, the strategic plan is going to push us tenfold in terms of making sure that we really stick to our priorities and initiatives. And so I think that this was the first little bit of training as we go into what is now going to feel like a 5-year marathon. And so just thank you on this work. But get ready, tie up your shoes, because we're about to dig into it some more. So thank you all.
Beautiful. Yes, Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
Yeah, I just need to know, so what we do with a question for the 1.3? How long can we send through emails or?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 options, and I'll defer to the chair on how she wants to do it. One is to send an email, and we can report out on them in the superintendent's update to answer the questions on the 18th. At the next board meeting, or we can send in an update in the board update on the weekly.
I think I would prefer having a report out on the next meeting. So if folks wanted to send any questions directly to Barrett about 1.3, and then we'll have a report out.
Okay,
Great, thanks.
okay, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you to all the staff who were here giving updates tonight. So up next, we have the report of the secretary. So we have the consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of May 21st, 2024. Are there any corrections to these meeting minutes? Okay, I see none. Hold on one second. Let me just double check I said the right date. Okay, beautiful. So the meeting minutes are going to be approved as distributed. Up next, we have everybody's favorite item, consent items. Go ahead, Deputy Superintendent.
Great. So under Board Policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods, significant value, and symbolic importance. As required by policy, all of the donations are listed in the board memo by name and donation accompanying this item. Our practice is that each donor receives a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and for their tax purposes. Tonight, I would like to thank Joyce Brannaman of South Portland, who donated items in support of a family at Talbot Community School, and then the Stevens Avenue Congregational Church, who donated items for the food pantry at Talbot Community School. Thank you, and we're very grateful for their support of our work.
Thank you. So then up next, we have a series of new business items. So I'm going to go through each one of them and read them into the record. And then we will have workshops for all of these items after adjournment. So up first tonight, we have a first read of a resolution directing Appointments Committee to recruit and recommend a slate of community representatives to the Pre-K 8th School Configuration and Boundaries Community Advisory Committee. I know that that is a big mouthful of words, and we'll get into what that looks like later on in the evening. I'm going to go ahead and read out the resolution just so everybody has an idea of what the draft that we'll be working from. So whereas the last time the district consolidated its school boundaries or changed its school configurations was during the mid-2000s, Whereas the population demographics and enrollment patterns of PPS have changed substantially during this time. Whereas the fifth priority of the strategic plan, systems streamlining operations for equity, efficacy, and accountability, includes an initiative to design and implement a sustainable multi-year financial model that enables PPS to successfully implement the strategic plan and equitably allocate resources across the district. Whereas this priority calls for the review and assessment of the current school district, pre-kindergarten through 8th grade, footprint against current pre-K through 8th grade demographics, and the evaluation of whether there are efficiencies or programmatic enhancements that can be achieved through adjusting boundaries and/or other configuration changes. Whereas the board believes that deep community participation and input is needed to achieve the best outcomes and solutions, and whereas board policy BCF states the advisory panels or committees will be established by a resolution and voted on by the board, including a number of members and the membership composition. Therefore, be it resolved that the board establishes a pre-K through 8th school configurations and boundaries community advisory committee consisting of 12 to 14 members, including 2 members of the board to be nominated by the chair, 2 staff representatives to be recommended by PEA and/or base unions, 2 current students or recent alumni, 2 building leaders to be recommended by PAA, 2 parents, caretakers of current students, and 2 to 4 additional community members. Be it further resolved that the Appointments Committee shall act quickly to solicit and review applications of those who are interested in serving on the pre-K through 8th school configurations and boundaries Community Advisory Committee. Be it further resolved that the Appointments Committee shall work with district staff to recruit a slate candidates who represent the diversity of backgrounds and experiences representative of the Portland Public Schools. Be it further resolved that the board should receive the slate of candidates by the first meeting in August in order to appoint the committee in time for them to begin their work at the beginning of the 2024-2025 school year. Be it further resolved that the superintendent will present a work plan to the board before the committee begins, which will identify the district staff responsible for supporting the work, a schedule of key activities and milestones, including consultations with the board and other community engagement activities, and any additional resources needed to complete the committee's work. Be it further resolved that the committee shall deliver a report of findings and recommendations to the board by February 2025 for decision-making to inform the budget development process that addresses any potential changes to the district's pre-K to 8th grade attendance boundaries, school configurations, and start and end times. So that is the resolution that is up on offer today. And as I said before, we'll be workshopping this resolution in just a few moments. We also have a first read of the proposed changes to policy JICD, academic honesty. We have the first read of proposed changes to policy IJNDB, student use of school-issued computers, devices, and the internet, and policy IJNDB-R, student computer device and internet use rules. We have the first read of proposed changes to policy GCSA, employee use of school-issued computers, devices, and the internet, and policy GCSA-R, employee computer device and internet use rules. We have the first read of the proposed changes to policy ACAA, harassment, discrimination, and sexual harassment of student, and the first read of proposed changes to policy ACAB, harassment, discrimination, and sexual harassment of school employees. And finally, we have the first read of the strategic plan tonight. Before we move to adjournment, I do want to just recognize the curriculum and policy committee for their beefy work this year of moving and updating all of these policies, and special thanks to Deputy Superintendent Townsend for really driving some really great work around all of these policies. So with that, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn the business meeting. Thank you, Board Member Grant. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bondo. We're going to adjourn at 8:09.